It is officially go time for the BYU football program, and no better time than now to have Connor Pay on the podcast and talk about what exactly to expect from BYU in training camp and really what he expects from himself.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day, and appreciate all of you who like to call everydayers right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars, and today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, some terms apply. All right, let's bring him in now. Team captain for the BYU football program and all around good friend of the podcast, Connor Pay joins us. And Connor, I want to start off by asking you, as you enter what will be your final training camp as a collegiate football player, what is your mindset right now as you're on the cusp of going through a month's worth of practices?
I think for me, it's just, obviously I've done this a few times now and I know what it's like. And so, just making sure that I progress the way that I want to progress so that I'm playing, at my peak come week one. And I think just making sure that we progress as a unit the way we're supposed to. Obviously I have my individual goals and all those things, but you can't really achieve any of those if you're not cohesive as a unit. So I think that'll be a big focus of training camp for us. But I'm just excited. I'm ready to play football again. It's been a lot of training and just kind of getting to the point where, it's just like, oh man, I'm sick of training. I want to play real football again.
Sure, and I can understand that. But when it comes to looking at this, because you still have another month until you guys take the field against Southern Illinois, do you get the thought, okay, I just got to grind my way through this? Like, what is your mindset at the outset of camp, and maybe how it might differ 2 weeks from now, for example?
I think I understand why some guys might feel that way, where you kind of have to grind through it. I mean, maybe I'm just weird, but I've always really enjoyed practice and enjoyed practicing. So training camp has honestly been something I've enjoyed a lot. It can be a little bit of a grind sometimes when you're out there in the heat and, and the padded practices are the numbers starting to stack up. But I've always really enjoyed it. So it's never really been a grind for me in the sense of like, oh man, I got to get through this today. But just trying to go out there and because it's my last one. I want to savor it and get the most out of every second. So that's kind of the mindset I'm taking going in.
Now, you have been a broken record all off season long when you've joined us about you being intent on making sure that this offensive line that you are the leader of has a better performance this season than they did a year ago in particular. Do you feel like you guys are at the right spot you need to be in going into training camp right now?
Yes, I do actually. And I'm really happy with how this offseason's gone. From January through spring ball through the summer phase, I'm really happy with what we've done as an offensive line and how we've prepared mentally and also physically, but now we have to actually go on the field and execute it. So all of that stuff is great to put ourselves in a position to play really well, but now we actually have to go do it and we have to go execute the schemes and do what we've been working on the past 7-8 months, go do it on a football field. and at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so, but I do think in terms of just preparation that, I think the guys in the O-line room are very prepared, both mentally and physically. We got a lot stronger this offseason. Everyone's weight room numbers went up by quite a bit. And we've spent a ton of time in the playbook together. I know I've mentioned that a few times that, the guys I'm probably not their favorite person all the time. But I feel like we understand the offense much better than we did previously. And I think all that stuff is gonna translate.
What's the messaging from Kalani Sitake in particular at the outset of camp? What has he been saying to you guys as you get ready now for your second year in the Big 12?
Well, the message is kind of like, look, we've done it, right? You know what it's like. You know how hard it is. Now let's go attack it and get it done. Like, there's no surprises anymore this year on how things are going to go or what it's like to handle certain things. He's like, we know now, and it's kind of just everyone thinks we're going to suck, and so now let's go and take that opportunity to prove some people wrong and put together the best season possible.
Obviously, you're working with TJ Woods, and he obviously has, I'm sure, his messaging to you guys as an offensive line, but I know that you've worked with him very closely this entire offseason. Has his demeanor changed at all now with camp underway?
A little bit. And I think every coach is that way a little bit. I think you allow is the wrong word, but you're a little more lenient in the summertime, like during the PRPs and things. Like, okay, guys who are learning this for the first time, like, okay, yes, you're not going to be perfect every time. You made a few mistakes. That's okay. Even some vets, like when we're learning new schemes, there's going to be some missed assignments and things when we're walking through stuff or out at a player run practice. And that mindset is now starting to shift to where, like, no, we're preparing to play games now, to where it's like that's not acceptable anymore. Or it's like you were supposed to get all those jitters out during the summer. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be perfect, but the expectation is definitely higher. And Coach Woods, you can start to feel the intensity start to shift a little bit, where his patience is a little less than it's been previously, which is how it should be. If you're preparing to go and play in a game, you better know what you're doing and know what's going on. And so you can kind of start to feel that shift. He hasn't gone into the full mode yet because we saw what that was like during spring ball. So I'm sure we'll get it tomorrow when we go out to practice. But you could definitely feel that mood starting to shift and come into the O-line room. So
are offensive line coaches ever truly happy?
Yes, absolutely.
They are?
Oh, of course. You should see the excitement on their face when they're standing behind a play in practice or in a game, and maybe we're running power or counter, and you watch the down blocks and you watch them fit the poles just perfectly, and even the tight end inserts exactly properly, and the hole just opens up and the back hits the read, and you get a 7 or 8 yard gain, and you look back at them. That's true joy for them.
Okay.
That's true joy for them. So I would say yes.
Okay, so that's in game. In practice, though, does it exist in
practice? Yeah. Same deal in practice.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's like Coach Woods is the same extreme on both ends of the spectrum. You screw something up, it is extremely high intensity, but you're getting ripped. You do something really well, it's extremely high intensity, but he's fired up for you. Okay. So, it goes both ways.
All right. I got some questions as you go into your final training camp. We'll dig into a little bit more as we roll on here. I did want to also get into a little bit some of the questions from our listeners as well. We'll delve into more of that as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, Game Time is here for you guys no matter what you're into with regards to your sports. All of us have different things we like to go out to, whether it's a sports event, even if you're a theater fanatic, you like to go out to concerts. Game Time's here for you guys. But more importantly, during the summer, a lot of us like to get out to the ballpark and watch Major League Baseball. And Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting your tickets faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. There's nothing better than that, my friends, about getting out to the ballpark and having a great time. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your MLB tickets. So get online now and download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Take all the guesswork out of buying your MLB tickets today with our friends at Game Time. Once again, terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Factor Meals, new friend of the podcast. The best part about Factor Meals, my friends, is they want to make it as simple as possible to eat quickly, but also B, eat nutritiously. They have incredible never frozen meals that are dietitian approved, and you can are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Think about that. It saves so much time. So no matter how busy you are, like I and Connor are going to be this time of year, you always find the time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. They have over 35 different meals, more than 60 add-ons to choose from every single week. So you'll always have new flavors to explore or old favorites you can go back to time and time again. From breakfast to dessert, you can stay fueled all day long with easy, nutritious options. And the best part is enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well-balanced meals. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the promo code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And it's all courtesy, once again, of your friends over at Factor Meals. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Are you sick of watching ESPN or Fox Sports and having all the talking heads screaming at one another, having to turn on the volume because you just can't stand it anymore? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every single day to bring you the campus biggest stories without all the screaming going on those other networks. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, bringing Connor Pay back into the conversation here. And Connor, we talked about the outset of today's show that this is your final training camp. With regard final training camp in college, because we anticipate you being in a training camp this time next year when it comes to the NFL. But as you go through this upcoming month-long camp, what are you looking to work on? Because you mentioned you've been through this a time or two, but what are you going to be working on mainly to get yourself ready?
Well, I mean, I think I got a whole laundry list of things, of small, minute details that I feel like I need to improve in my game. But I think in the broader sense of overall goals of training camp is, I want to, they're pretty similar to spring ball. So I feel like I've improved in a lot of them already, but just taking them to the next level is just, kind of my force output in the run game and just like my overall demeanor in the pass game and staying in posture and maintaining power angles throughout entire reps and things like that. So those are the biggest things. And then obviously a major part of training camp is making sure that I'm on my P's and Q's mentally. And I'm making sure I'm nailing my reads in practice so that I can nail them in the game and get people on the right page.
Now, you talk about force output. That sounds like something coming from the strength staff. And there was a video of you doing a box jump not too long ago that your athleticism as an O-lineman. I think some people were impressed that you could get up as well as you did. How do you feel physically just with the months of work that you put in with this new strength staff?
I feel great. This is probably the best I've felt in my career here physically. Going into a training camp and honestly, I've been really fortunate. I haven't really had any injuries in my career here. Just maybe some nagging things here and there, but nothing ever major. So I've always felt pretty good going into training camp. But this year in particular, I feel bigger, I feel stronger. And I feel quicker and more explosive than in years past. And so I'm looking forward to kind of feeling that in practice and seeing how that translates to the field.
Now, you guys as an offensive line have to work in concert with one another. There's 5 of you on the field at any given time. And obviously you guys working as a unit is imperative to any and all success that BYU wants to have offensively. Do you feel like with regards to you as a leader of this unit, do you feel like you have done your part and now it's your time to just kind of do your thing and let the other guys come along for the ride?
No, it's never that way as a leader. There's never a time where you get to sit back and just let things play out. If you want to lead or you've been tasked with leading, you're a leader 100% of the time. You can't just lead sometimes and not others. And so, I think in that aspect, I think it's got to come, especially during training camp, by leading by example first, and the guys seeing how I practice, how I work, the extra work I'm getting, and things like that to help, just to set the urgency and set the standard for what our training camp is going to be. And so, but no, I'd say that's an ongoing process, 24/7, and anyone who's in any type of leadership role knows that that's a 24/7 duty.
Now, I'm referencing two guys that I've noticed this with. One of them is a current teammate of yours in Tyler Batty. The other is Isaac Rex, who was the teammate of yours not too long ago. And both of them, I would be out there for media availability, and we'll get to watch a snapshot of your guys' practice to kind of just lay it out there. But I'm talking after practice. Tyler and Isaac routinely were the last, if not one of the last guys coming off the field, because in the case of Isaac, I'd always see him over on the sled doing blocking drills. I'd see Tyler working on different moves with different coaches. Is that something that you as an offensive line, do you guys do more mental reps when it comes to stuff like this, or will you guys spend more time on the field after practice working on things physically?
I think it depends. I think it's that pre and post practice time is sometimes it's structured, but the majority of the time, the coaches will say, all right, well, it's more, what did you struggle with that day, or something that you wanted to work on, or something you really feel like you need to nail down. So sometimes it's mental for some guys. It's maybe it's a certain blitz look, like, hey, I missed this twice in practice today or something. Can we go over some of the keys for that, or a certain block? And so we'll stay out there, and it's usually pretty individual, where one of the older guys in the room will go one-on-one with one of the younger guys and work through things together. And so I think it's kind of a hodgepodge of everything, kind of just depending on what the challenges were that day.
Now, you talk about being a leader, obviously, and that is, you say being one of the older guys, you're probably going to be doing some of that with the younger players on this offensive line unit. Do you feel like with the younger guys that you are able to connect with them? Because at times it can feel like when you're a fifth-year senior in your case, and you've got a true freshman coming in here, there can be a little bit of a disconnect there. But do you feel like you have been able to connect with the other guys?
Yeah, I think so. And it helps that one of them is my brother.
Well, sure.
So was able to connect with him fairly easily.
Are you harder on him, by the way, than others?
Yeah, probably. I try to keep it pretty. I try to keep it pretty even keel across everybody when we're out practicing in public, but he lives with me too, and so it's sometimes when we're at home, I'm a little harder on him sometimes than when we're in front of everybody else, because I don't want to embarrass him too bad, but I will when he deserves it. So, and we'll see. He gets to put the pads on for the first time in 2 years in a couple days, so it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. But
well, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you, because you've been through this. You went on a mission, then came home and put the pads back on. How big of a transition period is it in your mind for guys to have that layoff and then get right back into playing the sport that they love?
Yeah, it's a decent size transition, I'd say. I think for me, because I came back from my mission, I was still pretty big, probably 285 when I got home, and I was over 300 pounds by the time training camp started. In decent shape, not great, but I feel like I was able to handle it a little better just because of those aspects. And so, I definitely think, because a lot of guys come back from missions and stuff and they're undersized for O-line, and so it can be a pretty rough transition that way when your body's just not ready physically. So Trev's actually looked really good physically throughout the whole summer, almost surprisingly so. Like, I've been pretty impressed with how he's done, and obviously there's still like some mission fat and things he needs to get off of his body, but for the most part, he's looked really solid, and so I'm pretty excited to see how he handles. I don't think he's going to have any trouble transitioning to hitting and in pads again. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does.
final thing, just with regards to you personally, is that the first couple of days of practice, you guys aren't able to wear pads. And I've had so many coaches tell me over the years that they feel like it's almost a waste in some ways for guys in the trenches when it comes to that. Do you feel it's a waste, or do you feel like you can still learn things even if you're just wearing helmets?
No, I definitely don't think it's a waste for us because we just hit each other.
You still hit.
It's just, yeah, it's the D line's going to get their butt ripped if they're not firing off the ball, and so are we. So we basically still just hit each other. And so it's obviously we're not being stupid, but it's still you go and watch a helmets practice, and it's a little less physical, obviously, because it has to be, but not by a lot. And so I still think it's really beneficial for us, if anything, especially with it being the first couple practices of training camp, just a chance to feel the footwork again against the body, or to feel the hand placement, in a scenario where it's not full go yet. And so I think it's pretty beneficial. It's the ones that I think are later in the season, where you're kind of you get in November and it's more let's keep guys healthy, where it's like I could go through a whole team period and we don't run a single run play because of that. And so it's like, did I really get anything out of this team period?
Okay.
Where it's like I'm just sitting here pass protecting against this guy, and he's not rushing that hard because he's not supposed to. But that's kind of, it's a double-edged sword, because you kind of have to do that to keep guys healthy late in the year. But I would say those ones are the ones that are a little more like, okay. But I think they're very beneficial at the start.
So come out firing from the start, obviously, but you ease it back as the season progresses. That would make a lot more sense, it feels like. All right, I got a few more questions of my own. We'll also work in some listener questions as well. We'll get to all that as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Cougars with Connor Pay coming up in just a moment. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, eBay, of course, they want to talk a lot about their vehicles, but the best part is passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And with eBay Motors, they have everything to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Once again, eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, please consider subscribing to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's a great way to get inside intel coming to you in the form of a text message. Excited to have football here, and we'll obviously be updating you guys on everything that we learn about BYU from press conferences and the like. So join us today. The link's in the show notes below, whether you're watching and or listening to this. It's a 14-day free trial to see if it's the right option for you. So please join us today. All right. Final stanza of this week's podcast with Connor Pay, and I'll tease this right now, Connor. We have plans from now until the end of the season to have you on weekly. We'll do that throughout training camp, so excited to have that as a feature back on the show. But as you look forward here with training camp underway, got a thought that when you guys get out there against Southern Illinois, it'll be the culmination of quite literally 9 months of lead up to this. We as fans out there, I guess I consider myself in that vein, as well as being a media member. We spend 9 long months waiting for the 3-month regular season of college football. Does it feel any different to you as you look ahead to that 3 months that essentially is played at a sprint's pace, but it's got a marathon length to it?
I mean, I think it feels a little different this time.
Okay.
Just because I know that, when I step on the field against Southern Illinois, that's going to be my last season opener, as a BYU Cougar. And so I think because of that, because this is my last year, kind of each milestone as the season goes on is going to be a little different. And I don't know if that exactly answers the question you were trying to ask, but that's the first thing that popped into my head.
Well, I guess it makes a good point, though, because you've done your final winter conditioning, your final spring camp, you've done your final summer conditioning, and you're entering your final training. I can get that. You're looking at this like, hey, time's passing by here, and it's never going to be what it was.
Right. No, that's exactly how I feel. And so it's bittersweet in that sense, because obviously I'm going to miss it, but I want to go out with a bang. So it's want to go out and play the best I possibly can, and and win a lot of games. So
All right, I've got a really good question here, because I think you know what an elevator pitch is, because you're in the business school, and obviously you've probably had a few of these. But our good friend Taylor asked this: can you ask Connor for his elevator pitch as to, for fans as to why, speaking of Cougar fans, they should expect a better season this year?
Yeah, let's give it a shot, shall we? I guess what elevator pitch is probably what 20, 30 seconds tops.
Pretty much, yeah, that's what you got.
All right, yeah, no, it is. I do these all the time. I make the missionaries do it in my mission prep class. So
I like it a lot.
No, I would say, you should be more optimistic this season, because there's returning experience. Leaders on the team who have now been through a Big 12 schedule where previously we hadn't. We were trying to figure it out, and we didn't handle it very well, and we learned a lot from that. There's been changes on the coaching staff that have been monumental for the offense. And the defensive staff stayed the same and is secure, and they're able to build on what they've established last year, with a lot of injuries and, a lot of guys playing that we didn't expect to be playing. And, even with trying to figure out our quarterback situation right now, where it's like we got two quarterbacks that are more than capable and made huge strides over the spring and over the summer. And so that's probably my elevator pitch on why you should be more optimistic. At least that's how I feel.
52 seconds by my count. So there you go.
It's okay. Sorry. I got long-winded on a couple of those for no reason.
It's like riding up the Empire State Building or something like that. It's a longer elevator ride. So
yeah, or it's like we got slow elevators here at BYU, so we could have only made it 3 floors up for some of those.
Okay, that one is this one of the SAB still as slow as it ever has been. Okay.
Oh, it's slow. Yeah, it's slow.
That one, I don't know what it is, but that might be the slowest elevator I have literally ever ridden for how short a distance it has to cover. I know. Time.
It's brutal.
All right. All right. Another question here from Marlon. What is one stat that he feels, speaking of you, Connor, that will see the greatest improvement on offense this year, and how will that affect the offense's overall output?
Yards per carry.
Okay.
I think that's probably the one. Well, there's two really. I think there's yards per carry, and then I think our average second and third down distance. Because that was a big thing that hurt the offense last year. Was we were in a lot of 2nd and 10s and a lot of 3rd and 7+, which that's not great if you want to convert on 3rd down. And I think the reasons for why that's going to help the offense are pretty self-explanatory. But when you're able to get chunk yards on first down, which the yards per carry is going to factor into that, and get yourself into 2nd and 6, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, that's far more manageable to be able to keep moving the ball down the field than if you're constantly stuck in those 2nd and 3rd and long situations, which is what we found ourselves in a lot last year. Because when you're in those situations, that frees up the defense to do a lot of crazy stuff to you that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And so I think those are probably the two things that we're looking to change the most is the yards per carry and then the average 2nd and 3rd down distance.
All right, I got 3 more. They're all going to be kind of rapid fire here because I don't think they're necessarily going to require a long answer. So
sure.
First one from Matthew. Who is the up-and-coming offensive lineman that Connor feels we should know about right now?
I think the obvious one's probably Joe Brown.
Okay.
Just with how well he played in the spring and, how well he looks physically and all that stuff. It's Joe has an extremely bright future.
Next one from Dirk. Will Connor look like Samson come fall camp, the end of fall camp?
Maybe, who knows? It's I'm kind of at this point, obviously you can see I'm clean shaven, and so I'm doing my duty here, and I keep my hair trimmed as the honor code asks us to. And so, yeah, but I am letting it grow out a little bit. We'll see what it ends up looking like at the end of training camp. And it's if it gets to the point where, a coach or an administrator says, hey, we might want to tighten it up a little bit, then I'll do that. But, so far they're letting me go. So I'm going to keep going, and hopefully I can get the Samson look by the end of camp. I don't know if I'll quite be able to pull that off. Maybe by the end of the season, but
okay. Well, obviously, if you cut it and you lose your strength, we'll all know that you are Samson.
Yeah.
Final question goes to Tyson here. What is Connor's favorite thing about the first day of training camp?
Okay. Are we talking about the real first day, or are we talking about the first day of practice?
Take it whichever way you want.
I'm going to go first day of practice, because the report day of training camp is an awful experience.
Okay.
You sit in that team room for like 4 hours while every department comes through and gives you all this information that this is my 5th time hearing all of it. And I know all of it already. And I'm sitting there, and, obviously, the veteran guys, leaders of the team, were on the front row. So it's not like I can just be on my phone, or play games or something, which is what I would be doing. But yeah, that was today. That was just sitting in that team room, a lot of meetings. And just, so I'm not even going to count that. I'm not going to include that day, because I have nothing good to say about today.
All right.
But I think the best part about, the first real day of training camp is just walking out onto that field as a team in your uniform again and getting to play football. All right, because it's like you have not been able to play real football for the last 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just you've been running and lifting and practicing, but you haven't been able to play real football. And so just being out there, putting the helmet on again, lining up as a team, going against the defense, all that stuff, it all just comes rushing back to you. And that's probably my favorite part about training camp, I'd have to say.
All right.
Day one of training camp, I should say.
Day one, practice one, right? And then by practice 15, maybe the conversation changes.
Maybe. We'll see.
Well, Connor, we will talk to you next week. Get your feeling after the first week of practices are in the books. You guys should be in pads by then, so dynamics should change as well. But appreciate you taking the time. We look forward to these chats weekly throughout the upcoming season.
Looking forward to it too.
All right, so there you go. That's Connor Pay. I'm Jake Hatch. A big thank you once again to all of you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who like to call everydayers as well for checking out the podcast. And until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.